All right, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, here we go. Okay. All right, good morning, everyone. So, kind of plan for today is I'll walk through, kind of give you a general overview of DEVCOM, much larger than I think what most people are tracking. I'll try to get into a little bit of what's driving Army modernization right now, our transformation, guidance that we're receiving from senior leaders. Probably very similar to what you've heard from Navy and the Marine Corps. They've come through in the changes. A little bit of the framework of what we're doing and how we're trying to break up our times and get faster than what we're seeing right now with our traditional processes, while still maintaining the traditional, and then how we're trying to shape ourselves for the future. We'll spend a little time, then I'll walk into kind of what we are in New England. Through this whole process, look, I can drone on forever. I can ask questions. You guys can ask questions as we go. So if there's anything that comes up, please let me know. We can stop, entertain some of that, and then if there's something else that is not interesting, then we can just keep moving. So, all right. Okay, so to DEVCOM. So, and I had this question asked, you know, what is something in the Navy that's similar? And very similar to Naval Research Laboratory. I think the difference you're going to see is that DEVCOM, we have 9 centers. All with the exception of our AI2C are led by a Tier 2 SES. AI2C is ran by a colonel. That's our newest one. We stood that up in 2019. That is a predominantly military organization based in Pittsburgh that works with Carnegie Mellon, and we also use it as a workforce development. But if you look in the top left there of the blocks, foundational research, that's our Army Research Laboratory. So I think one thing different, and I may be wrong, I'm not that versed in how the Navy is organized in it, but for us, our Army Research Laboratory does predominantly our foundational research. So our 6-1 dollars come into there, and then as that technology matures, it is farmed out to the rest of the centers. So as the slide says, you know, we say drones to dozers, rockets to robots, autonomy to aviation. So somewhere in DEVCOM, there's going to be one of our centers, one of our scientists, engineers that are working as we go. What really brings the power into that is that allows us to bring all warfighting capabilities in. There are still other organizations. We're able to do business processes. We're able to do soldier performance. And then we also have what is called the DEVCOM Analysis Center that allows us to go through with all the analysis, not just into our science and technology community, but into our experimentation and also greater bits into the Army. What's not shown on the slide is the life cycle engineering. So over half of the work we're doing, so we have the science and technology development, but due to the expertise, the size, and the facilities we have, we are also do the majority of the Army's life cycle engineering. So upgrades to our current systems, anything that's going into another increment, will come through DEVCOM with one of our systems or one of the centers it goes through. So the beauty of that, under one command, so we're part of Army Futures Command at the 4-star level, and then you come down to DEVCOM at the 2-star level. That allows us to take the science and technology, integrate that across multiple of them. One of our latest ones that's come out, what we call the CAMEL, which is an autonomous multi-rocket launch system. Between 2 of our systems, we are able to take a HIMARS, tear the cab off, take autonomy from our leader-follower trucks, add it to it, and that synergy between the multiple systems working across the Army has allowed us to continue to move things pretty rapidly as we go. So, all right. So with that into kind of what DEVCOM's made of. So there's about 14,000 of our civilian teammates. We're about 300 military. Over 25 disciplines, so academic disciplines ranging from PhD subject matter experts across the Army to new interns coming in. So that gives us quite a bit of ability to partner with academia. It gives us an ability to bring the right expertise in and bear on a problem and to really drive what the Army is trying to get us to go after. So if there's something that you're working on, I know to this community there's probably not as much interaction towards the Army as there is other services, but we probably have somebody in there that is geared towards and really working on something you're doing. All right, so kind of our footprint as we said. When I said we're around, so over 100 locations, if you look at some of our predominant locations where we're at, so we have organizations, so our ground combat vehicle system is going to be in Warren, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. That is there intentionally. It allows us to partner with industry, the leading experts on ground vehicles. We have our Aviation and Missile Command, which is going to be in Huntsville at Redstone Arsenal. Our Armament Center is running out of Picatinny Arsenal. Like I mentioned before, AI2C is running out of Pittsburgh, and that was intentionally chosen to be close to Carnegie Mellon. We're also partnered with many universities, so we are the executive agent over 3 UARCs, one with MIT, one with UC Santa Barbara. We have one at Johns Hopkins. Again, that allows us to be out, to partner, to be able to take what is best in industry, bring in rapidly, and move. One thing we do like to say as we go in, a fairly lean organization. About 75% of our folks are focused on research and development. So we try to keep the overhead down. You don't ever think everyone gets the same pressure. Keep it down. Keep everybody working in. So right now, it's working out for us very well. I do have one error on the slide there on the artificial intelligence. That should be that should be Pittsburgh. Well, that one got fixed. Never mind. So you guys do have a better slide. Okay. All right. So any questions on kind of the DEVCOM footprint? I know that was pretty rapid. It's a large organization. I just want to give you guys a feel of what we're going and what capabilities are there. All right? Okay, so Army transformation. So again, every service is going through this. There is a lot of new guidance coming in. There is a lot of effort. So what we've been charged with, and if you start with the Secretary of Defense, bring it all the way over to our Chief of Staff, we've been charged with to make everything through the lens of lethality. So if we have something that we don't need, if we have something that is not contributing to the warfight, if we have something that we're researching that is not necessary, to start removing those items and get back into just focused on lethality. Also to embrace innovation. So, large organization can be hard to change. So we've been challenged to go through, look at our processes. What are we doing today that we can change? What are we doing today that is too slow? We're trying to get away from the 300-page requirements document. We're starting to use things called capability needs statements, which are a broader couple pages to put out the industry to say this is what we're looking for and this is what we need. Been charged to collaborate with industry. So our leadership in the Army has told us to find where industry is leading. If industry is leading, we need to adapt, adopt, or modify what they have and try to bring that in at a faster pace. And I'll get on to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit on kind of where we're trying to break things up and what we're looking at doing. But the theme, if you go across all the guidance we've been receiving, is that we need to modernize faster. And I don't think that's lost on anybody in this room, that the military can be slow, can be cumbersome to work with. If you go through the POM cycle, if you look at contracting, some of the work that our leadership has been trying to do is to get more flexible funding, to walk away from so many specific budget line items, to get more into portfolio funding. We're still working that through leadership and through Congress, but we're trying to get to where instead of having a line item for a specific UAS, we can just have a portfolio that we can then move money rapidly and get into. Reinvigorate the industrial base. So that is one thing that we have ran into, is trying to get to the scale and the speed that we need and work more so with some of the smaller companies, some of the more innovative techniques, and bring that in, and then to transform. So General George has been very clear on we need to transform today. He has been, the same as all the leaders around the military, watching world events, seeing how fast we're moving. And if you look at the pace of change in the combat today, it is outpacing anything that we've been used to. We have not developed the processes yet to allow us to rapidly push. We are pushing things into theater, and within weeks, months, they're outdated, and someone's on to the next thing. So we're trying to find a way to get faster, to bring it up from the bottom, and then that'll lead into really what we're calling continuous transformation. So this is, from Army leadership, what we're trying to set up. So we're still looking across from today out to the future. You'll hear 2030, 2040. We don't really set a date on the future, but someplace, not today, well past the pond. But if you start on the left with the transformation and contact, that has been General George's big push since he's been in as the chief. That's 18 to 24 months integrating a piece of kit into a unit, adjusting force structure, adjusting how we train, how we fight, how we operate. And that's really a bottom-up. So if you go to the first time we did transformation and contact, we identified a handful of brigade combat teams. We found their current needs, and that was a lot around counter-UAS and UAS capabilities, and we gave it to units. When I say we gave it to units, we took prototypes of directed energy counter-UAS and gave it to units overseas in real environments. And we learned more in a matter of weeks of watching a directed energy system with a unit in the Middle East actually having a threat come in than we ever would have running it through testing or any other development we did. So we've given, at the brigade level, numerous systems, and a lot of this leads up from the bottom. So almost every division and corps right now out of Hyde has built an innovation center. So these aren't scientists, these are soldiers, enlisted an officer who are in an innovation center, given resources, and allowed to go out and find solutions to problems. Partnering with industry and finding ready now technologies, that's been our challenge. Go find things that are minimal viable products. They do not have to be completely done. They don't have to meet 100% of the requirement. If they meet 80% of the requirement and they're better than what we have, we give them to a unit. So that first iteration came in really focused at the brigade level, giving formations equipment. And then we have been able to field equipment, change their structure, and continue to move forward. So if you think about what we call the total Army analysis, that is how we do our force design, our force modernization. That is a multi-year process. We normally do not change brigade combat team structure in a year. But due to TIC and being able to put equipment in there and get the immediate feedback from the soldier, that has allowed us to change formations and to bring equipment in. What we call TIC 2.0, we brought up to the division level. And so we spent a lot of time there. We've had cumbersome command and control systems. We've had patchwork of IT, of network, of transport, and it was always a problem. I watched one unit go through a warfighter exercise, which was one of our core level simulations. We're able to use all of their equipment, but according to the commander, it took them 6 months to train on it. And as soon as this exercise was done, soldiers would start leaving the unit, and they would be back down to where they started. So under the TIC 2.0, we really focused a lot on the command and control. We brought it to the division level, and we started taking feedback from commanders. How do they want to command and control their formations? And from that, we've been able to start focusing our efforts and be able to bring interoperable items and being able to make it to where commanders can actually adjust how they do their missions and how they can bring it in. So we're continuing on now, and I think the transformation and contact will be with us for a while. But that is our ability to go to industry, to come into the DEVCOM labs, find pieces of equipment that solve a problem and put them in a soldier's hand, let them provide the feedback, and then from there start the process. Still some work to do on the back end, and that's really where we start getting into delivered. Let me add one more back thing on transformation contact. One struggle we've had in the past is when we bring a piece of kit in, the expectation is that everybody gets it. And if you have something that moves fast with technology and you have to scale it to a 1 million-person formation if you include active and reserve component, that normally means that what you're getting into the soldier's hands is years old, is outdated, and it's not within. So with TIC, we're able to focus on specific units. We're able to scale it to an appropriate size, get the equipment into them while it is still viable, understanding that in 2 years you may be taking that equipment back and giving them something different that is there. So critical to that, and I think what I'd stress for the partners here, it's got to be interoperable. We need common controllers between UASs, air and ground preferably. We need data structures that you can plug and play. I always use I go from our command and control systems that take experts to connect them and to make sure that everything's working, to where every time I take a trip, no matter what phone I have, Android or an Apple, no matter what car I rent, whatever happens, I get in and things connect, things work. And that's really what we're looking for. those low cost of entry, low training. If it's a piece of kit that is going to take 6 months of training for a soldier and it is completely different than what they just transitioned from, then that's not going to allow us to be rapid. So those are more things that would go into the next phase, the deliberate transformation. So that's your traditional POM years. That is the TAA, that's the budget cycle. That's where everybody struggles with the valley of death. How do I go from some idea to get it through into funding? That is still necessary. If we have, and I don't know if you guys have been listening to General George much and Secretary Driscoll, but not necessarily everything is a program or record. You know, if you think, one of the examples that we've been using lately is the Gray Eagle. It's an amazing UAS that we've had for 2 decades. But once it becomes a program, that is your thing for 2 decades, and you can't transition to the next. Doesn't mean we walk away from it. Some of our larger, more complicated systems will be there. But that's where we see the deliberate transformation. That is where DEVCOM is coming in with, and I'll explain DEVCOM's bit in tech here at the end, but for the deliberate transformation, that's still where we have over 250 programs that are budget line items that we are developing and working with the acquisition community. Those capabilities will work their way into a program or record, but very traditional through the POM cycle. That's 2 to 7 years. And then the last one you'll see is the concept driven. So that is, again, our concept developers working on the future Army warfighting concept. Call it 2030, call it 2040. You don't really tag it to a year, but just it's in the future. So we are currently working on our Army warfighting concept, or the joint warfighting concept is working its way through the processes. The key here for DEVCOM, though, is that we take our senior scientists who are working on things like quantum, energetics, anything that we need in the future, and we marry up the operational side of the Army, and we marry up the scientists, and we put them together. We go through weeks at a time, and we make sure that the concepts that we're developing for the future, that our scientists and engineers are researching to develop those capabilities. And then we also make sure that our concept developers are doing something that is feasible. It doesn't have to be feasible today, but it has to be something that our scientists say that we can get to in the future. So that's really kind of the breadth through. And on the transformation and contact, I skipped this part, but for DEVCOM, where we get it, we have a list of about 300 ready now technologies. These are things that we've worked on in the past that didn't find a home. So we use that list to work with TIC and bring that in. Plus, we also are right now marrying up our scientists with leaders. So we've taken one of those Tier 2 SCSs I described, and we've married them up with a division commander. We've brought in the subject matter experts in those competency areas, and we've married them up with units. And then we are putting the soldiers' feedback in, and we're trying to use that to make sure that we are driving to get within, again, back that at 18 to 24 months. So that's the kind of the framework that we're going through right now, that we're looking. This has been going on for about 2 years. I expect that it'll keep going. We've had some tremendous successes of getting innovative technology off the shelf into soldiers' hands, and where we're having to accept some risk, and I think it's good risk to accept, is that ability to not have the perfect, to not have a 350-page requirements document that then we go and say this meets every single requirement. But if it meets enough of the requirement and the commander's comfortable getting it to soldiers and getting the feedback. Okay. Really then, so before it, I think I got about 5 minutes, and then I do want to open up for some questions there. I just want to give a quick overview of the Army's footprint in the New England area. So NATIC founded in 1954. Initially founded as the Quartermaster Research Institute, or Center, about 20 miles outside of Boston, tucked back in, and I'll tell you that most of the people in the Army doesn't know it exists. It sits in there, but everything in there has touched a soldier, almost every member of the military. And if you want something to help you remember what NATIC does, it's also responsible for the creation of the McRib. So we have combat feeding there, and the technology that came out of that made its way into the McRib, and you'll see that on a routine basis as they come through. But about 1,600 employees, 16 tenant organizations. So if you think about anything a soldier wears, eats, sleeps under, or anything that drops from the sky under a parachute is going to come through NATIC in some form or fashion. So I'll get into the DEVCOM Soldier Center in a little bit more detail, which is the main element from DEVCOM that is there. But one of our other larger organizations, which is USAREUM, the United States Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, so just USAREUM, really is focused on soldier performance. So a medical research organization that is focused on soldier performance and welfare in any environment. We like to refer to USAREUM as skin in. We also have joint partners. So both the Navy and the Coast Guard have their textile research facilities here. And then for the Army, we have everything from acquisition partners to life cycle management to sustainment. All organizations, again, are focused back towards the soldier and in the sustainment. All right, into DEVCOM Soldier Center, which is one that I'm more closely aligned with. Again, ran by Tier 2 SCS, Doug Tamilio there. And really, they break down into 3 sections. So soldier protection, sustainment, and effectiveness. So if you go back to protection, that's going to be uniforms. Do not design or research the ballistic plates, but actually the carriers and how to make them more effective. Anytime as we switch to the Arctic and focus there, they're the ones that are working on the new Arctic clothing. And then into sustainment, combat feeding. So the DoD executive agent for combat feeding. MREs, new rations. I also learned while I've been at NATIC that, at least for the Army, the menus that go into our dining facilities come out of NATIC. And then into effectiveness. This is where we call Soldier Center being skin out. So if USAREUM is skin in and they're looking at human performance, Soldier Center is looking at human performance, biometric sensors, any other performance that we're going through. And so that, again, back to the teaming, that allows us to have that research focused on the soldier and more collaboration and actually more efficiency. Okay. Workforce, real quick, again, very diverse, about 20 different disciplines. We have everybody from general engineering up to material science experts. You can see through there a lot that we can help with. The beauty of being NATIC and what we're focused on and being in the Boston, the New England area, it really gives us a chance to get into academia, and in the local industry provides a lot of support and a lot of partnership as we go forward. Okay, and then really, I think for us, what would benefit, coming in here is really understanding what industry has, where we can collaborate, where we can help. The QR code there on the bottom right will take you to one of our partnership pages. There's a couple bits in there. We've got the Spark system. You'll see that's where you can put in some technology. We can use that technology then and advertise it around the Army, to see if someone in the Army wants to sponsor it, if it moves towards some of our experimentations. It gives us an idea of what's out there also to see if there's something we can marry up with the TIC unit. But as DEVCOM sets, we have hundreds, thousands of cooperative agreements. We just signed a PIA with UMass Lowell that will allow us to transfer some technology and to work closely with them. So we're really open to collaboration, and I'll pause there. We just got a few minutes to see if there's any questions. And then if not, we'll be standing by later on if anybody wants to grab me. All right. Thank you very much.